morning, and most welcome to the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences and this press conference about the prize in economic sciences. We will present it both in Swedish and in English, and you're welcome to ask questions in either language. Välkomna till Kungliga Vetenskapsakademin. Det är dags att tillkännage Sveriges Riksbanks pris i ekonomisk vetenskap till Alfred Nobels minne. Ekonomipriset instiftades 1968 av Sveriges Riksbank och det delas i år ut för 49:e gången. Priset finansieras av Riksbanken, men det är Kungliga Vetenskapsakademin som utser pristagare. Vi som sitter här framme, det är professor Per Strömberg, ordförande i priskommittén, professor Peter Gärdenfors, ledamot av priskommittén, och jag själv, Göran K. Hansson, akademins ständige sekreterare. The Sveriges Riksbank Prize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel was established in 1968 by the Sveriges Riksbank, the central bank of Sweden, and it is awarded by the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences now for the 49th time. I am Göran Hansen, I'm the Secretary General of the Academy. On my right is Professor Per Strömberg, Chairman of the Prize Committee. On my left, Professor Peter Gärdenfors, also a member of the committee. This year's prize is about understanding the psychology of economics. Årets pris handlar om att förstå psykologin i ekonomin. Kungliga Vetenskapsakademin har beslutat att utdela Sveriges Riksbanks pris i ekonomisk vetenskap till Alfred Nobels minne för år 2017 till Richard H. Thaler för hans bidrag till beteendeekonomi. The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences has decided to award the Sveriges Riksbank Prize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel to Richard H. Thaler for his contributions to behavioral economics. And you see the photo of Dr. Thaler on the screen above us. He was born in 1945 in New Jersey in the United States. He got his PhD at the University of Rochester. And he's currently professor of behavioral science and economics at the University of Chicago. He is a US citizen. And after that announcement, the chairman of the prize committee, Per Strömberg, will give us some introductory remarks about the research and the laureate of the prize.
Thank you. Economists are a lot about trying to understand how people make economic decisions and behave when they interact in markets. Now the problem is that human behavior is very complex. So if we want to construct useful models of economic behavior, we have to make simplifications. One such simplification, which has been very important in economics, is the assumption that humans behave in a fully rational way and make economic decisions to maximize their own well-being. This simplification has been incredibly powerful and has helped economists construct models to analyze a large number of important economic phenomena. Now, it's not that economists believe everyone is rational, but the issue is that whether the deviations from rationality are important enough and systematic enough to really affect economic outcomes in an important way. Now, over time, researchers gather more and more evidence on how human psychology actually deviates from this fully rational model. And Richard Thaler is a pioneer when it comes to incorporating such insights from psychology into economic analysis. For the last 4 decades, he has used both theories and conceptual models, lab experiments, empirical tests and surveys to document and analyze how specific aspects of human psychology systematically shape economic decisions. Richard Thaler's findings have inspired many other researchers coming in his footsteps, and it has paved the way for a new field in economics, which we call behavioral economics. And thanks to his contributions and discoveries, this new field has gone from being sort of a fringe and somewhat controversial part of economics to being a mainstream area of contemporary economic research. And insights from behavioral economics has not only been important for academic economic research, but has increasingly been applied to design better economic policy.
Thank you, Per. And now Peter Gärdenfors will give us some more insights into this area and the discoveries that led to the prize. Peter, the floor is yours.
Yep. Richard Thaler is a pioneer in integrating economics and psychology. He's analyzed 3 ways in which humans systematically deviate from the traditional economic models. First, even if we try to make rational decisions, we have limited cognitive abilities, our rationality is bounded. Second, even though our decisions are often guided by self-interest, we also have social preferences and we care about fairness and equity. And third, we sometimes suffer from lack of self-control. I will now present some of Thaler's contributions to each of these areas. First is bounded rationality. Thaler has proposed a theory of mental accounting. It builds on the observation that most people, in their minds, group their payments into different accounts: housing, food, vacation, and so on. Many of you have a credit card, and your account for the card has a high interest rate. At the same time, you may have a savings account for a future vacation, for a new apartment that has a low interest rate. This may seem irrational, since money from a low-interest savings account may be used to pay off the debts on the high-interest credit card account. But you're afraid that if you take out money from your savings account, you will not put it back. So having a credit card account is a way of preventing you from excessive spending. And in this way, we can exercise self-control and commit ourselves to spending less by keeping separate mental accounts. Mental accounts have boundaries over time. They can be opened and they are closed. So for example, buying a stock can be seen as opening a new account with the purchase price as some kind of reference level. If a stock gains in value, it's easy to sell it and close the account. But people are aversive to losses. So if a stock loses in value, investors tend to wait for the value to get back to the purchase level, at least. And they therefore hold on to losing stocks longer than is economically rational. The second area is social preferences. In many situations, socially oriented motivations, such as a desire for fairness, are important. And in joint experimental work with his colleagues, Thaler has shown how judgments about fairness play a role in economic decisions. A simple example is a store that normally sells umbrellas for $10, but raises the price to $20 or even more during heavy rain. So if consumers take the normal price as a reference point, they will regard this as unfair pricing. And such reactions may influence the pricing policy of the company. Similarly, someone earning $20 an hour working in a company typically uses this as a reference wage. If the company in a recession proposes to cut the wage from $20 to $15, this will be considered unfair by the employees. Such fairness judgments explain the relative stability of wage levels, even in bad times. The third area is limited self-control. We all live with a conflict between our desires for the present and our hopes for the future. A classical example is Odysseus, who is torn between his desire to go to the Sirens and his future plans. Such a conflict may lead us to deviate from our long-term plans. So when you're 30, you may decide to start saving for your retirement when you're 35. But when you turn 35, you may change your mind and keep up your consumption rather than start saving as previously planned. Together with his colleagues, Thaler has devised what is called the planner-doer model for how this conflict can be handled. The planner is concerned with the well-being in long run, while the doer only concerns is only concerned about the current well-being. So to resolve the conflict, the planner can either force the doer to do something by exercising costly willpower, or impose rules that limit the range of the doer's choices, just as Odysseus did when he tied himself to the mast. Common examples of such rules are: don't keep alcohol at home, only buy a pack of cigarettes at a time, or don't buy food when you're hungry. The planner-doer model captures the idea that one can resist temptation at the cost to the psyche. Similar dual system models of decision making have later been applied and studied in psychology and in neuroscience. I finally turn to applications of the economic models. Thaler has, together with his colleagues, advocated what they call libertarian paternalism. The idea is to design policies that nudge people into making better decisions for themselves. For example, Thaler has devised a nudging mechanism for pension savings called Save More Tomorrow. In the program, an individual commits to allocating a share of future salary increases to savings. This policy helps people exercise more self-control. An important aspect is that the participants can opt out of the program at any time, but in reality, very few decide to opt out. The Save More Tomorrow program has been successful since it has substantially increased pension savings. So to sum up, Thaler has given us new insights into how human psychology shapes decision-making. He has devised new experimental tools to investigate human behavior. His research has spawned a new field, behavioral economics. And he has shown how policies based on insights from this field can help people make better decisions. He's made economics more human. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, for that great introduction. And now we may have Dr. Thaler with us on the phone. He's on his way to the phone, at least. Not yet. While we're waiting, questions to the panel. Anybody who's brave enough to ask one of my colleagues here a question? We prepared for a lot of questions, so don't be shy. Don't hesitate. You had all expected this prize, of course. Dr. Thaler?
Yes.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, Dr. Thaler. This is Joran Hansen, the guy who woke you up an hour ago.
Good morning, John.
Good morning. Have you had your cup of coffee now?
Yes, I'm awake.
Great. So we're here in the session hall of the Royal Academy of Sciences with journalists from Sweden and all over the world. And I'm sure they are eager to ask you questions. I hope they have also had their cups of coffee, so they should be prepared to ask some questions. Who would like to start? Please, lady over there.
Yes, Hanna Malmodin, Swedish Television. What would you say is the most important impacts of your research?
Well, that in order to do good economics, we have to keep in mind that people are human.
Now we didn't hear, there was something wrong with the connections for a second or two. So could you repeat the answer, please?
I said, I think the most important lesson, our connection isn't good. Hold on a second.
So try to repeat the question and we'll see if we can.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most important impacts of your research?
The most important impact.
Yes. So I think the most important impact is the recognition that economic agents are human and that economic models have to incorporate that.
Yes, the lady over there.
Hello, Jenny Peterson from TT News Agency. What was your first thought when you got the call this morning?
Well, I was pleased. I no longer will have to call my golf buddy Gene Fama Professor Fama on the golf course.
Yeah, he was here a few years ago, wasn't he?
Yes.
Right. We have a question over there. Please.
Hi, this is Jens, Jens Nordström from TV4 in Stockholm, Sweden. First, congratulations, Mr. Thaler, on the prize.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, I seem to recall you had a short Hollywood career in the movie The Big Short. You explain the hot hand fallacy about how somebody who is successful in something is assumed to be successful going on. I'm wondering if that applies to the current American president, Mr. Trump.
Well, I do think that the film career is probably was important to the awarding of this prize. I was disappointed it wasn't part of the official speech. As to President Trump, I think he would do well to watch that movie.
I'm also wondering, there's a substantial amount of money involved here in the prize, 9 million Swedish kronas roundabout. I'm wondering if you're going to be super rational about this money or if you will act humanly, and in what way you will act humanly with the money in that case.
Well, you know, this is actually quite a funny question because as the citation noted, one of my fields of research is what's called mental accounting. And according to standard economic theory, there's no way of knowing which money gets spent on what. So if I put my good Chicago economist hat on, then I can't answer your question. But I will say I will try to spend it as irrationally as possible.
Very good. Yes, the lady over there, please.
Congratulations, Professor Taylor. This is Jafita Axelson from freelance for China Radio and reporter for Green Post. I just wonder, you know, in your research, did you touch upon the Chinese economy? Because Chinese economy was very much influenced by the Chicago school thoughts, I think. And in your opinion, what's your prediction about Chinese economy in 5 years, say? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have no expertise at all on the Chinese economy, except that it's growing very rapidly. But I have no insight. Sorry.
Okay. We have a question over there. Yes, please.
Professor Thaler, I had the opportunity to listen to you in Stockholm recently when you were talking about the pension system in Sweden. Do you think that your policy advice will have more impact now when you have our Nobel Prize winner?
Well, I don't know. I don't know whether the Swedish Parliament, how they think about these Nobel Prize winners, but I hope they listen to the research I presented and the additional research that my colleagues and I are doing, because I think there are ways to improve the Swedish pension system.
Great, we need that, please.
Professor Taylor, congratulations. This is Yiming Fu from China's National Xinhua News Agency. My question is, you obviously opened the door for the research on economics and psychology. So I wonder, in future, what will your research direction go? And in which specific areas would your research results be applied to? Thank you.
Well, I've never been one to plan my research very far in advance, but as the previous questioner indicated, I've recently been studying, of all things, the Swedish pension system and the choice architecture of that system. And my colleagues and I are working on a paper on that right now. The tentative title is Nudges Are Forever.
Okay, I think we've pretty much covered the questions that were raised here. And so, Dr. Taylor, thank you very much for being with us at this press conference, and we look forward very much indeed to welcoming you to Stockholm in December. And I, for one, could benefit from some advice about my own private pension system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you all in December.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Now, have you thought of any questions to the panel, or is everything crystal clear? I guess you're all waiting for the... there is a gentleman over there. Yes, please.
Yes, David Keaton, Associated Press. So this is the second year in a row where there have been no female winners amongst all the prizes, and several years now that there have been no female winners for this specific prize. Do you have an insight in why this may be? And second part, could you tell me a little bit more about the decision-making process? How many women are on the panel that decide this, and is it fairly representative in your opinion?
Okay, I'll start and give you the general figures for all the prizes, and then Per Strömberg can comment more specifically about the prize in economic sciences. We are very proud of the laureates who are awarded this year and were of those last year and so forth. But we are disappointed looking at, in a larger perspective, that there aren't more women who have been awarded. Part of it is, of course, that we go back in time to identify the discoveries. We have to wait until they have been verified and validated before we can award the prize. And there were even a larger bias against women in terms of fewer female scientists if you go back 20 or 30 years. But I'm not sure that's the entire explanation. We have taken measures, we and the other prize awarding institutions. If you look at the committees now, the Nobel Committees, there are women chairing actually 3 of the 6 committees. There are female scientists or equivalent on all the committees. So I don't think there is any substantial male chauvinist bias in the committees. We are also, the committees have taken special efforts to identify women scientists to start to nominate for the prize to a greater extent. But this started this year because we are concerned that we may not get enough nominations of female scientists. We don't nominate ourselves. We invite nominations from the scientific community in the world. And I suspect that there are many more women who are deserving to be considered for the prize. And therefore, we have started to identify specifically leading women scientists and invite them to nominate. We will, starting next year, indicate in our invitations to nominate and ask the nominators to identify women scientists and also consider ethnic diversity, geographic diversity. And finally, we are going to have a conference this winter with the different prize committees to discuss this issue. So we are concerned. We are taking measures. I hope that in 5 years, 10 years, we'll see a very different distribution. And that's the situation as of now. Per, what's your comments regarding economic sciences specifically?
Yeah, I can just underscore what you said. I think there are two important points. One is that we are indeed awarding research that where the discoveries were made, let's say in the 70s, 80s, maybe early 90s, during a time when we had much more of a gender bias in economics as well as in many other sciences, which basically means that as time goes by, the fraction of female laureates will increase. I'm certain of that, and you can look at some of the prizes that are given to younger economists. Some of the top prizes there, the gender distribution is much more even. And the second thing is that said, this is something that we are very concerned about. What you have to realize is that the committee doesn't just freely decide on these prizes. We aggregate the opinion of nominators all over the world, and we're very reliant on their nominations. So if there's anything we can do, I guess it's a call for the nominating body to also take these issues more seriously.
So consider this a request to all our nominators for all the prizes to consider also women scientists who have made important contributions. Please. Yeah.
I just like to ask any of you who can comment, because when we have the Nobel Prize in medicine, people understand as that, okay, that gives us a good message that we should not work too late. And then in this economic prize, my understanding is that people should be rational and don't spend all, or maybe save your money for pension a little bit earlier or at a reasonable time and quantity. Is my understanding okay?
Peter, what
would
do
you
you say?
comment that?
Peter?
Yes, I mean, that's a fair description. I mean, what distinguishes Thaler's models from others is this: it brings out this conflict between our desires for the present and our plans for the future. And in retrospect, we sometimes regret what we've done last night or last year. So he has devised methods for us he has told us how to nudge ourselves to apply more self-control, and for example, in terms of saving, but there are many other application areas as well.
More questions? Last, final question, please.
My name is Johan Schick from Dagens Nyheter. I wonder about Richard Thaler getting the prize alone. I mean, if you look back, most years the prize has been shared between different candidates and 2 or 3 ones. But this one, there's only one. And does that mean that his contribution is so unique, or does it mean that he has been working all alone, or what is the explanation?
Well, this is, I guess, an issue not completely easy to answer. But I mean, when we work through these prizes and these areas that we want to award, we try to find the people that are most responsible for the particular area that we want to give the award to. Sometimes it's a very natural group of people. As you know, we can award the prize up to 3 candidates. But other times there is a clear person who is behind the area that we want to award. And in this particular case, it was clear to us that a solo prize to Richard Thaler was the natural one. Now, there are many researchers following in his footsteps, so one would not be surprised if other people in this strand later on will also get recognized, but who knows?
Okay, I think we'll close there. Those of you who have requested individual interviews will be able to do them right after this. Thank you very much for your interest.
Peter Gärdenfors, the prize is in behavioral economics. Can you explain what it is?
Behavioral economics means that you take into account human psychological factors, such as our limited rationality, our social concerns, we care about the well-being of others as well, and also our lack of self-control. These are the three main factors that are accounted for in behavioral economics.
And what are the major contributions from this year's prize laureate, Richard Taylor?
He has worked in all three areas and made groundbreaking proposals and also a lot of experiments in the areas that have shown the economic consequences of these human factors, you can call them. So there are his proposed theories in all three areas.
So we are not homo economicus, as economists used to call the rational homos.
No, even though Richard Thaler is from Chicago, he doesn't belong to the Chicago school, who has been one of the main proponents for homo economicus. But he has really wanted to show that the human factors really has an influence on economic decisions. The earlier models has thought of these shortcomings as being kind of random deviations and not really, if you're irrational, you will soon be thrown out of the market. But he's shown that this is not true. There are systematic deviations in human behavior that needs to be explained.
that need to be explained, yes.
So do you have any examples of those systematic diversions?
Well, one is this model of mental accounting. I mean, we tend to keep our spendings in different boxes, so to speak. Traditional economic theory says that it doesn't matter where you put your money, you should be able to move them between these boxes. But people don't. I mean, they have savings accounts for vacation, they have one account for buying a new car and so on, and they don't want to spend money from one account to use in another, to pay off your credit card debt, for instance. So that's one example.
This is experimental science.
He has also done lots of experiments, in particular when it comes to our judgment of fairness. There is, together with the earlier laureate, Daniel Kahneman, he has done a series of experiments involving several games, ultimatum game, detector games, so-called, that show that people really care about being fair to others.
As for example, in what areas?
In wages, for instance, that people are not willing to be unfair in wages. They don't like when a company raises the price of a product if demand suddenly rises. They think that there is a fair price for a product, and even if the company could sell the product at a higher price, they don't think they should. So it's not a fair price. That's another area.
So you are more fair than economists thought about us?
Traditional economics says that we only think about our own self-interest. Of course, you can say that being fair, being just to you, is good for me in the long run. So some economists say that this can be modeled. But Thaler has shown that there are more concerns, and it's more general than has been thought before. And he's provided experimental evidence for this.
And his colleague that you mentioned, Daniel Kahneman, is also a previous prize laureate. They work together, and he also wrote a book about thinking fast or slow. So what does Richard Thaler say about that?
Well,
fast or slow?
Yeah. Their relation is very interesting because Thaler worked with Kahneman in the early 1980s, and he was inspired by Kahneman and Tversky's prospect theory when he developed the theory of mental accounting, for instance, or the theory of the endowment effect is another of his contributions. But then he also developed this planner-doer model that is used to explain how we are not so good at saving for our future well-being. And actually Daniel Kahneman has then later taken up this model. So when he talks about thinking fast and thinking slow, this is an example of such a planner and doer model. I mean, this is the fast one is the one who lives in the present, and the slow one is the one who lives for the long perspective. So one can say that Kahneman has been inspired by Thaler's models. There is a give and a take between these two prize winners.
But this thinking about people like about delayed rewards, it is not new. Is it new for economists?
The psychological factors are not new. I mean, they are all well known. I mean, these bounded rationality, limited self-control, and so on. They're well known psychological. What Thaler has done is to put this into an economic context and shown that it has large consequences for economic decisions. And he has also been able to model some of these consequences. So it's not the psychological factors as such, but it's their impact on economic theory.
He also has coined a new term, nudging. Can you explain it?
Nudging means that you want to help people to do something that they like themselves. And that's very important. Thaler doesn't want to be paternalist. He doesn't want to impose rules on people. He wants to be a libertarian paternalist. That means that you should always keep the freedom of the individual, but you can still devise certain mechanisms to help the people plan better for their future. And his most well-known examples of nudging are his pension saving programs, the Save More Tomorrow.
And why this? You could ask yourself if nudging is also a kind of manipulation.
There has been criticism against his nudging, but the criticism has often missed this fact that a person can always opt out of the program if he or she wants to. It's not there, you're not bound to it. You can always leave a pension saving program, or you can always change your mind concerning being an organ donator or something like that. So it's a libertarian program, and so you're not imposing anything on persons in his nudging mechanisms.
So in what way would you say Richard Taylor has changed the economical science?
Well, the short summary is that he's made economics more human.
What did he say when you called him this morning?
He was slow to wake up, I must say. I think he was not prepared for it.
Was he happy?
He was happy, of course. Yes, he was happy, but he was quite taken by it. Was my impression.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.